What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Mir, and welcome to the ultimate guide for Bunny, an incredible AoE nuker with her amazing electrical assets and abilities. In today's video, I'll be teaching you how she works and how to play her, build recommendations from early to late game, optimal choices for both gear and weapons, along with recommended substat priority. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy the video, and if you have any further questions, I'm live every night on Twitch. The link will be in the description, and without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with Bunny's abilities. Firstly, her passive, Rabbit Foot, allows Bunny to create a shockwave when she lands from a double jump. On top of that, she gains her own resource called electricity that charges proportionally to the amount of distance traveled. So you constantly want to be moving because when you stop, your electricity gauge begins to gradually decrease. Next, Bunny's first ability, Throw Bomb, creates a bolt of electricity that targets the closest enemies, debuffing them with electrocution. The ability's damage scales proportionally to your electricity gauge, so the more you have stored, the more damage Bunny can output. This mechanic applies to all of her abilities, so try to keep that in mind. Bunny's second ability, Speed of Light, allows her to sprint 50% faster. Because of her increased speed, Bunny fills her electricity gauge quicker, but at the cost of slowly draining her MP. So managing both of her resource bars is important to make sure you're outputting as much damage as possible. Bunny's third ability, Lightning Emission, is her primary damaging ability. It creates a circle of electricity around Bunny that pulses once every 7 meters traveled, dealing massive amounts of damage while also inflicting the electrocution debuff. Bunny's final ability, Maximum Power, lets her discharge a beam of electricity, stacking in damage the longer it's used. The only downside of the ability is it completely drains your electricity gauge. The main use of this ability is to burst down bosses and elites, so you won't be using it super often. Now that you understand all of Bunny's abilities, let's get into how to actually play her. Alright, so we're back in the training facility. Let me set my bots up again, and we're going to get into how to play Bunny. So, level don't matter. There you go. Oh, okay. So, first, Bunny's electric gauge is at the very bottom of the screen. As you can see, it's filling up from me running. Now if I press my C ability, it starts to fill up faster, but my mana bar starts to drain. So, you want to use your C as often as possible. When we get into the build, we'll talk about how to maintain this, but for now, all you need to know is the faster you move, the faster your electricity bar fills up. And the same happens when you press your V. The faster I move, the more it pulses. This also applies to your grapple and jumping. So let's say you run out of your C, you don't have any more mana. What you can do is grapple, so the damage pulses just as fast. And hopefully, when you kill an enemy, you get a proc of MP collector or an MP orb drop, so you pick it back up, and then you're right back into sprinting, doing the same thing. So I'll really only use the grapple if you don't have your C, or if it's like an elite enemy, you would just turn off your C and grapple, because this is probably the fastest way to get pulses. And then you can also just use your Z ability with the beam, and the longer you hold this, as you can see on the right, it's similar to a beam rifle. The longer you hold it, the more damage it does, and I think the range also increases, so that's something to note. What else is there? I swear I made them invincible, but I guess I didn't. My electricity bar from not moving started going down. It starts draining actually pretty fast, but as soon as you start moving again, it starts going back up. But her Q strikes, what, 4 enemies? Oh, I guess it spreads too. I didn't know that. But strikes up to, what, 5, 6 enemies? 6 enemies? Okay. So You can hit 6 enemies in front of you, and the debuff that I was talking about earlier in the abilities, the electrocution, is this, where it just constantly procs this damage over time. It's really just used to get the debuff on that I'll show later on, but I really don't use her Q that often. If anything, I'm just trying to constantly stay in this because this also inflicts electrocution. Let me back up. But it also inflicts it. So your Q really isn't necessary. It also takes away your electricity bar. So I really don't use it that often, nor would I really find it that useful. If it's a single target instance, you would use your Z anyway. And then anything AoE related, you just use your V and C in combination. Or your grapple, you know. Whatever the case is. Also, let me spawn one enemy. The best way to deal with like a single target boss enemy, let's say like an elite at the end of a mission or something, is you want I need my abilities. You want to pop your V and then grapple, double jump, and then shoot, then do the same thing. Just want to spam that and then go back in this, wait for your grapple to come back. Same thing. Also, I recommend turning off your C when you get your grapples back, just so you're not draining your mana bar for no reason. But yeah, that's probably the best way to take on like elite enemies. So pop this again, you grapple, jump, shoot. Wait, my aim's ass. Same thing. And when you land, you're trying to get it back, you just sprint around. You got your grapples back, turn it off. And same thing. So, as you can see, I have 3 grapples, which I believe is the best for Bunny. You can also get the mid-air one and the long distance one. I guess the long distance one could work just as well, but I prefer to just have 3. But yeah, that's pretty much it for how to play her. AoE, like I said before, you just sprint, keep this on, literally just run. You don't have to do anything special. For bosses, you pop it, hit your grapples while it's active, shoot between. You don't have to shoot between them, but you know, more DPS that way. And you could also just do this, you know. But then once this bar is gone, you have to run a little bit before you can use your V ability. Oh yeah, that's another thing I'll touch on. The only thing that drains mana is your C. Your V, Z, and Q all take away from your electricity bar. So even with nothing, you can still use your abilities. Same with the Z if it'll come back. But since I don't have that much bar, it won't last that long, and you can't get to the maximum damage. So only use the Z when your electricity bar is full. Your V you can use wherever, and your Q is kind of useless, but you can use it whenever you want to, I guess. But that's pretty much it, and let's go ahead and get into the builds. Let's get into her most general build. So for your Transcendent mod, you want to use Electric Transition, and this helps with your survivability by giving you shield back while you're using your Speed of Light ability, which is super useful. Like we talked about in the how to play, I'm using the 3 grapples. Nimble Fingers for skill cooldown, increase HP for max HP. I'm gonna skip these 2 for now, I'll talk about them in a second. Skill effect range, you want this on Bunny so you can obviously do more range. We have crit damage and crit rate for our skill, crit rate and more crit damage for our skill, and then pure crit rate for our skill. So I'll explain crit in a second if you don't understand, or for a second if you don't understand. What crit does is when it procs, your damage gets multiplied by a certain amount, and to see this amount, you go to info or whatever, and right here you can see your skill crit rate is 30%, and the crit damage is when this procs, your damage is multiplied by 2.5. So you want as much crit as possible and as much crit damage. Moving on, Electric Specialist and Singular Specialist. Now, as you can see, this one says skill power and this says skill power modifier. So let me explain the differences. So for electric specialists, one, you want this because all of your abilities are electric, so it applies your damage to all, or applies to all of them. And the skill power is your base damage. So let's say you do 100 damage with your Q ability. With electric specialist, let's say it makes you do double the damage, so now you're doing 200 with this. Now your skill power modifier multiplies off your base number. So let's just say if you didn't have electric specialist and your damage was 10, even if this multiplied your damage by 50, you're still only getting 500 damage, or you're only getting 500 damage instead of if you had 200 and you're multiplying that by 50, you know? So when you're building your characters, you want to make sure that you have a skill power mod that applies to all of them, and then your skill power modifier that applies to whatever ability you want to use mainly. And you can see what I don't know, element, or I don't know what you call them, but this one you can see is fusion, this one is singular. So just hover over this and you can figure out what your character needs to improve whatever ability you're trying to improve. Now moving on, MP collector, since we'll be killing a ton of enemies, there's 70% chance of it happening. Actually procs quite often because you're killing multiple enemies at once, and when you do, you get 12% of your MP back, which allows you to use speed of light for longer because your MP bar is obviously going down slower. And paired with MP collector, we're using frugal mindset for the skill cost and more range. And what the skill cost does is it makes it so the drain of your MP is less than what it would be at base. So when MP collector procs, you're getting 12% back, and then because of frugal mindset, the drain is slower, so that 12% will last you much longer than it would if you didn't have the mod on. Now a few variations of this build, you remove emergency measures, put skill insight here, and then if you want to build more tanky, you'll put increased defense here. If you feel your MP drain is still too high and you can't use your speed of light as much as you want, you swap strong mentality into the slot. I'll have screenshots of all three here so y'all can see them real quick. So you choose which variation of the build suits you most. I enjoy seeing higher numbers with my crit, so this is the build that I'm running, but any of the three will work. It just kind of depends on what you feel you need. So for early game build, don't even worry about your skill crit. Don't worry about what do you call it, frugal mindset. You probably won't have, so instead you'll put on strong mentality. It does the same thing but actually does it more, you just don't get the range. And then you want MP collector as soon as you can, but if you don't have it, you know, obviously remove that. You don't need this as well. So this will be your best starting out bunny build. You get range, you get your skill power, you get your cooldown, HP, and your skill cost. Strive to get these mods first, and then after you get all of this situated with your crystallization catalyst and things like that, then you move on to the build that I had before. Now the next build we have is the Bionic Fuel Transcendent mod, and what this does is it drains your HP instead of your MP. So I call this a speedrunning build because you can keep this up 100% of the time. You do run slower. Instead of 50%, you run at 30%, which is the same as Glaze speed boost and VS's speed boost. Obviously you don't move as fast, but you can just keep it up 100% of the time. You will be 1 HP as well though. It won't kill you, but I think it goes down to maybe, let's say it keeps you at 25% health and then you can't lose anymore. So with this build, we're using stem accelerant instead of increased HP because our MP doesn't matter anymore. Increased defense, you can only get it to level 4 even with 6 forma, and I'm not forming again, but anyways. Skill expansion for your range mod. Use skill insight and front lines for your crit rate, crit damage. HP collector is a must with this build. If you are running this, you have to use HP collector, or else you'll literally just forever be one shot. You can never really regain your health. Again, electric specialist for our skill power, nimble fingers for some more cooldown. Another mod that makes this build is walk on a tightrope. So when your HP is 50% or lower, your skill power modifier is 30%, like we talked about how skill skill power modifier works, and then you also get 30% to your firearm attack. And this pairs really well with the gear that we're going to talk about. You actually use a separate set for this build compared to the AoE nuke and the bossing build, but I'll get into that when we get into the gear. So let's go ahead and talk about the bossing build. So this bossing build you can only use if you have Ultimate Bunny, and the reason for that is because this high voltage mod only works on her. I honestly don't recommend trying to do bosses with Bunny. Like, even with this build, it really does melt bosses, but I would much rather use Glay to kill a boss. But if Bunny is all you have, our Ultimate Bunny is all you have, you can make this build. So Enlightenment gives you more MP, which you want to keep this ability up as much as possible, because what high voltage does is it increases the range and damage of your ability by quite a significant amount, but it can only hit up to like 4 enemies. Instead of it being the circle around you, it's a cone in front of you. But when there's only one enemy, you know, that doesn't matter. Increase HP, of course, for more HP. Skill expansion, because even though this increases your range, you still want slightly more range so you don't have to stand directly under the boss. Singular Specialist, again, paired with Electric Specialist. Skill Insight for your crit rate. Front lines for your crit damage. Increase defense for sure, because bosses just do a lot more damage than anything else. Time Disruption for skill cooldown and more max HP. And the thing that pairs really well with this build as well is Lethal Infection. While landing a firearm crit, enemies inflicted with a debuff skill power modifier plus 2.5% for 5 seconds up to 10 stacks. So you get 25% from this. And as we talked about earlier in the how to play section, her Q, her Z, and her C all apply electrocution, which counts as a debuff. And then the Thunder Cage has a very high base crit when modded correctly. So you can get 100% uptime on this, and this build really does melt bosses. Like, I'll have a showcase at the end. I probably won't be able to fully, you know, solo the boss, so it'll probably be a live comm or something like that, because my Thunder Cage is just not invested in. It does literally no damage. I like shoot stems at the boss, but it's okay. I'll work on that later. But that's pretty much it for the bossing build. Let's get into her weapons and gear. So Bunny's best in slot weapon is the Thunder Cage. These are the substats I'm using on it currently. I think they're the best. It won't give me gold firearm attack. RNG is ass. But for the mods, or I'll show you this actually. This is the build you want to strive for. Don't use level 0 mods, but all of these max is what you want to strive for as your in-game Thunder Cage build. Action and reaction, rifling enforcement, and fire rate are the first ones you want to focus on. After that, you want to get an element. Then after your element, get your crit rate, crit damage. And then after, I would recommend putting on Brisk Walk. You don't have to level it. It goes down to 15-second cooldown when you do level it. So every 10 seconds you get a 10% movement speed. And this is really good on Bunny specifically. Or it's good on anyone, because 10% movement speed is just fun. But moving faster on Bunny makes you do more damage because your C will pulse more often. So this is a really underrated mod to use on Bunny, but it gives you a lot of benefit. And like I said, every 10 seconds it'll proc. But after you get all of these, you can either do weak point or reload time modifier. They're both really good for increasing your DPS. If you can reload faster, you can shoot more, which increases your DPS. And if your weak point damage modifier is higher, you also do more damage. So choosing either one of these works. It's completely up to you. But that's pretty much it for her weapon. So let's move on to her gear. So for Bunny's reactor, you want an electrical singular skill power boost. I have a fusion one right now because her the singular one can't be farmed currently. I'll show you really quick what I mean. If you go to your map, view other difficulty, put it in hard mode, you can see your difficulty level rewards. So the Thunder Cage is a general rounds. We want electric and singular, but as you can see, you can't farm one right now. It will change in 2 days. I'm recording this on July 13th, so on the 15th we'll be able to farm a singular one, and I will. But for substats on your reactor, you 100% want either skill duration or skill cooldown, and you want them to be purple. If they're purple, you can get 100% uptime on your C. Currently, it's like half a second before you can press it again, which isn't that big of a deal. So you could skip them, I guess, but I would recommend getting either or. And then for your other one, you have a few possibilities. I would recommend electric skill power because it will apply to all your skills. But if you don't get that, singular skill power boost is really good, and skill crit rate and crit damage are also very good substats. So skill duration and skill cooldown is one substat. Electric skill power, skill crit rate and crit damage, or singular power boost are all good substats. Now for your external components, I'm using a 2-piece Annihilation and 2-piece Supernova set. The reason for this is the Supernova set main stat for these first 2 pieces are guaranteed to be defense, and same for this is guaranteed to be defense for the bottom 2. And you get 5.7% skill duration when using 2-piece Annihilation and 8.6% electric skill power modifier. Using these 2 together allows you to be as tanky as possible while doing as much damage as possible, compared to using the 4-piece Supernova set, which I can show you. Your shield goes up a little bit, defense goes down, but this build, you're just kind of squishy. You do a lot more damage with this because of the lightning strike that happens because of the passive. If you fought the Executioner, when he like brings down lightning bolts, that's what you're able to do, and when that attack hits, it does a ton of damage. But you are a lot squishy with this build, but this is also another option. Now with this one and the 2-piece that I was running before, I would only use these builds with the generalized build and the bossing build. For the speedrun build specifically, you run 4-piece Annihilation. And the reason for this is, actually that was trash. Wait, is that the right one? Oh no, it's this one. The reason for this is you're constantly going to be low HP. So you get to maximize the firearm attack you get from this, and you get your HP recovery for when HP collector procs. So for the speedrun build, this is 100% the best thing you want to run. And for the general and the other one, just use 2-piece. Now for the substats, for your auxiliary power, I recommend getting shards on all of them because it will just forever be useful. But you can get max HP and a resistance like toxic, chill, electricity. That'll probably be the best for this. For your sensor, you want MP. Oh, it's the wrong one. You want max MP and MP recovery in combat so that you can use your Z way more often, or your C way more often. Yeah, your C, your speed of light, way more often because of the MP. For your backpack or memory, you want defense, and I believe it can drop with shield recovery in combat. Yeah, that's the wrong set. But you want defense and shield recovery in combat because when you're using the default build or the general build, electric transition will get boosted because of your shield recovery in combat, so you get more health quicker. So that's a really good combo. And then for this, you want max shield and shield recovery modifier as well. So that's all the substats. Also, really quick, if you want me to make a entire guide on every set and what main stats can drop, because they're fixed depending on, you know, what part it is, I can do that for each set. Just let me know in the comment section if a gear guide is something you guys will want, and I'll get to working on that right away. But that's pretty much it for the bunny build. I hope you guys have fun. Bunny is a super fun character to play, kind of mindless, but that's what makes her fun. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we're gonna go to the live commentary for this showcase. But yeah, that's it. If you enjoyed the video, I already said that, so peace.
본격적인 시설 조사를 위해선 성체 외곽을 점령해야 해. 전투의 성공을 부탁해. 나는 그동안 다른 시설들을 확인해볼게. 내 쪽은 지하 수로가 있어서 물로 흩어지면 들키지 않고 어느 정도 조사를 진행할 수 있겠어.
확인해보고 싶은 게 있어. 근처 벌거스의 DNA 샘플을 모아줘.
So I know I said it's gonna be a ball showcase, but I'll just be honest. I got packed. Alright, my Thundercade shoots marshmallows. So I couldn't kill him, or I couldn't solo him, but so I'm gonna just show you what it looks like when you're farming with this build. So right now I'm using the 4-piece Supernova set, so I should be getting the lightning bolts that just hit for a ton of damage. Also, I don't know if I touched on this in the how to play, but the more your bar is filled up for your charge ability, it also makes it do more damage. So I can see in like 200Ks, which is overkill on Bunny, but who doesn't like to see big numbers in a game like this, and like, you know, a few other things. But as you can see, I just took 1,000,000 damage with this build. Like one thing exploded and almost half my health is literally go. I died. Please don't use 4-piece. You literally can't survive. You just can't survive with it. Don't use it. Just use the 2-piece set. But I'm glad that showed you. That's it for me. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.